Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the humid, humming heart of the Aztec Empire, Tenochtitlan. You're standing on the causeway at sunrise mist curling up from the lake, and the sky is already the color of roasted chilies. Canoes drift across the water like quiet arrows. Your sandals are damp, your stomach is rumbling, and the obsidian-eyed guard just informed you quite cheerfully that unless you prove useful by sundown, you might not live to see the stars. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing where in the world we're all drifting off together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in Tenochtitlan with your head full of vague assumptions, gold temples, and those unfortunately vivid illustrations from old textbooks. What you get instead is traffic. Canoes glide around each other with practiced chaos, some loaded with woven mats, others stacked high with cacao beans or bright red chilies. A man on the dock yells at a group of teenage boys who just tipped over their cargo boat full of live axolotls. No one's panicking, they're scooping them up one by one, and the salamanders seem almost amused. You're swept along the causeway into the heart of the city. On either side the lake glistens, dotted with chinampas, those floating gardens that made Aztec agriculture so efficient and somehow prettier than any garden you've seen in real life. Neatly laid out in grids, these plots of land are teeming with maize beans, squash, even tiny tomatoes. A farmer rows by and nods at you. He's been up since before dawn, probably singing to his plants. You nod back. It feels polite. As you pass through the city's gates, you're met with the scent of burning copal-damp earth and hot tortillas, and noise children, running dogs, barking merchants, calling out with sing-song voices. It's oddly soothing, like being in a very busy dream where you don't have to do anything but observe. Towering ahead is the Templo Mayor, its twin shrines rising like giant stair-stepped mountains of stone. One shrine is dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, god of war and sun. The other belongs to Tlaloc, the rain god. A helpful bystander tells you they're opposites but also co-workers, like roommates who argue over scheduling the apocalypse. You glance up at the steps steep and many and think, surely I won't have to climb those. Spoiler, you will. You're guided into a plaza where everyone seems to be going somewhere important. A group of young girls is delivering flower garlands to a minor shrine. A few elderly men in turquoise cloaks are deep in debate, possibly about the grain tax. A market woman is selling roasted grasshoppers with chili and lime. You try one. Crunchy, tangy, oddly addictive. 10 out of 10. And then out of nowhere, a priest in full ceremonial regalia appears beside you. His headdress is a small engineering miracle of feathers and beads. He's holding a bundle of paper strips and speaks to you with all the calm gravity of someone discussing the weather. We're short on offerings today, you might do. You laugh nervously, he doesn't. To blend in and to avoid being gently nudged toward a sacrificial altar, you volunteer to run errands for the temple district. Maybe carry flowers. Clean incense burners. Feed the ceremonial eagles. Whatever keeps your heart inside your chest. Historians still debate how rigid Aztec society really was, whether every role was strictly assigned from birth, or whether clever, charming folks like you hopefully could occasionally squirm upward through sheer usefulness and luck. For now, you're betting on the latter. You're handed a tunic. It's plain but soft. One of the older temple assistants pats your shoulder. Try not to spill anything on it. Blood is hard to wash out. Again, probably a joke. You hope. As you shuffle behind the main pyramid, you pass a smaller shrine where a boy not much older than 12 is placing feathers in a careful spiral. He pauses to examine one, sets it down, and starts over. There's a quiet, reverent precision to his work. Not fear, just deep focus, like he knows that even the gods appreciate a well-made centerpiece. A priest walks by and compliments his arrangement. The boy beams. You wonder if your feather arranging skills are up to snuff. Probably not. Further down the corridor, you pass a mural being painted in real-time figures in bright reds and deep blues, detailing a myth you vaguely remember. Something about a god being dismembered to create the sky. You make a mental note not to fall asleep beneath this particular image. Too much symbolism. Someone presses a cup into your hands. It's a thick maize drink with cinnamon. Warm, comforting, slightly lumpy. Like a hug from a grain-based beverage. You sip slowly and feel your nerves ease a bit. Maybe you'll survive the day. Suddenly a gong sounds deep and resonant like thunder wrapped in velvet. Everyone in the plaza pauses. You freeze mid-sip. It's not an alarm, just the call for mid-morning observance. A brief ceremony. You're ushered into a line behind some flower bearers and told to walk slowly, avoid eye contact with the high priest, and definitely don't trip. You glance at the pyramid steps again. Yep, you're climbing them. Step by step, you ascend alongside others carrying offerings. Food feathers, carved stones, bundles of paper painted with glyphs. A few people carry nothing but prayers whispered over and over like lullabies. The sun is higher now, gilding the stone in warm gold. You reach the top and are met with a stunning view. City lake gardens, mountains all spread out like a tapestry. You can't help it, you exhale. The priest accepts the offerings, murmurs something rhythmic, and sprinkles water on the ground. You catch just a few words: balance, sun life. The crowd murmurs a soft chant in reply. It's not frightening, it's grounding, even peaceful. The ceremony ends with a single conch shell note that floats away on the breeze like a sleepy sigh. You begin your careful descent, gripping the side rail, pretending your legs aren't jelly. At the bottom, you're handed another snack. This time, tamales filled with squash blossom. You could get used to this kind of hospitality. As the plaza returns to motion, you take your place among the temple aides. You've bought yourself a little more time, perhaps even until dinner, but don't get too comfortable. You've only survived the first few hours, and there's a whole empire yet to explore. You don't get much time to enjoy your tamales. As soon as you sit down on the stone ledge, a temple assistant, twice your age and half your patience, snaps his fingers and points with a feathered baton toward a wooden door. You've got the midday errand slot, he says. Deliver this to the Kalmakak. He hands you a cloth bundle still warm. Inside a stack of ritual food offerings wrapped in banana leaves, a handful of cacao beans, and what appears to be a carved obsidian spoon. You nod solemnly as if you've been delivering to the Kalmakak your whole life, and shuffle off in the direction he points, pretending you know exactly what the Kalmakak even is. Spoiler. It's the elite school for noble-born children boys training to become priests, scribes, and military leaders. You are about to wander into a very serious place full of very serious children who've been studying glyphs since they could crawl. The building itself is tucked behind a garden of medicinal herbs. Tall stalks of epazote swaying fronds of wild anise, and one particularly aggressive-looking plant you suspect might be the Aztec version of poison ivy. A mural outside shows a boy kneeling before a stern-looking priest, glyphs floating between them like speech bubbles. The caption, if you could read Nahuatl glyphs, would probably say "speak wisely" or "get smacked with a maize stalk." You duck through the doorway and enter a low, dimly lit corridor that smells like crushed chalk and incense. Inside, Rows of boys sit cross-legged, each tracing glyphs onto bark paper with a stylus. Their hair is neatly bound, their expression somewhere between bored and terrified. A priest glides between rows, occasionally tapping someone's wrist and murmuring corrections. One boy near the back glances up at you and gives the universal look of "new kid, huh?" You raise your bundle slightly in greeting, and he returns to scribbling what might be a poem or a recipe for stew. It's hard to tell in this light. The headmaster, if that's the right word, approaches. He's draped in a white tunic edged with black, and wears a necklace of tiny greenstone beads. His face is unreadable, like he's permanently unimpressed. You bow slightly and offer the bundle. He nods once, then mutters something about your posture and asks if you're good at sweeping. You're not particularly, but you nod anyway. You spend the next hour sweeping the courtyard under the watchful gaze of stone serpent heads. The floor is decorated with mosaics made of tiny shells, and you immediately regret agreeing to this job. One wrong move and you'll scatter an entire jaguar's paw. But somehow you manage. A few of the boys sneak glances your way. One even whispers, "Nice sweeping." Progress. After your task, you're invited, maybe conscripted is the better word, into a study session. You kneel next to a novice named Tenoch, who starts explaining how the Aztec calendar works. His explanation begins with, "Okay, there are 2 calendars," and ends with your brain folding in on itself like maize dough. Here's the gist, though. There's the Tanalpahuali, a 260-day sacred calendar used for divinations and religious ceremonies, and the Jupahuali, a 365-day solar calendar used for farming and seasonal events. Every day has its own name, deity, and energy, sort of like if astrology, a farmer's almanac, and your high school planner merged into one complex cosmic spreadsheet. Tenoch shows you today's glyph for Ehekatl. Wind day. You glance at the sky outside. Sure enough, a breeze is stirring the herb garden. Coincidence? Or are you finally becoming attuned to the rhythm of the city? The boys start reciting a prayer in unison. You don't know the words, but you mouth along, adding the occasional and ah at what feel like appropriate intervals. The priest frowns at you, but doesn't intervene. Small victories. Historians still argue whether the Kalmakak was a strict religious institution or more of an elite boarding school. Some accounts describe it as monastic, filled with fasting and discipline. Others hint at a more well-rounded education, music, astronomy, ceremonial dance, and the all-important art of featherworking. Regardless, it's clear that this was a place of immense status and responsibility. These weren't just future priests, they were future architects of empire. At midday, a conch shell sounds and the boys rise. One offers you a pinch of cacao from a pouch. You accept gratefully. It's gritty, bitter, and oddly refreshing. It sharpens the mind, Tenoch says. You nod sagely, pretending your mind isn't mostly occupied by how much your feet hurt. You leave the Kalmakak through a side gate and step into sunlight so bright it feels like a second sacrament. Just across the square, you notice a group of commoner children playing a game with a ball made of solid rubber. One shouts Tlactli the name of the ceremonial ball game. It's like volleyball, soccer, and cosmic justice all rolled into one. In the distance, you see the ball court itself flanked by massive stone rings high up on the walls. You make a mental note to avoid that area for now. You've already had your share of near-sacrifice experiences for the morning. Instead, you meander back toward the temple district, where lunch is being prepared in vast outdoor kitchens. Women in embroidered tunics flip blue maize tortillas over open flames. Clay pots bubble with amaranth porridge, wild greens, and a few things you can't identify. Someone hands you a bowl. You don't ask what's in it, you eat. It's delicious. As you chew, you spot a woman carefully arranging obsidian blades on a mat. They glint like frozen shadows in the sun. She's a ritual surgeon, part healer, part mystic, part craftsman. Her job, you're told, is not only to perform sacrificial rites, but also to conduct bloodletting ceremonies for healing. You wisely do not ask for a demonstration. One of the priests walks by and pats your shoulder. "Still alive?" he asks, not unkindly. You nod. He gestures at the marketplace. You'll like that part. It's less sharp. And just like that, you're off again, feet dusty, belly full, and a few more hours safely survived. The sun is high now, casting the pyramid's long shadow across the plaza. You pause at the edge of a small shrine to adjust your sash and find yourself watching two children painting clay whistles with natural dyes. One lets out a soft hoot from hers. It sounds like a night bird calling across a canyon. The other smiles. You do too. It's not the grandeur of empire that holds you, really. Not the gods or the ceremonies. It's the quiet insistence of life continuing between rituals. The soft hum of breath between gongs. The painted whistle echoing through the heat. You stand a little straighter. Maybe you'll survive until evening after all. You make your way toward the tianguis, the bustling marketplace of Tenochtitlan, trailing behind a young girl balancing an enormous basket of chayote squash on her head. If the Kamakak was a whispering library of power and tradition, this place is the roaring heartbeat of the city. Vendors call out prices in a rhythmic chant, competing with the drumming of feet on packed earth and the soft slap of fish being gutted. The air smells like roasted corn-fermented maguey and just a hint of freshwater fish past its prime. It's overwhelming, but in the way that a dream becomes more interesting the longer you stay inside it. You pause at a stall where a man carefully arranges piles of tiny tomatoes, chili peppers, and what looks like the Aztec equivalent of scallions. He offers you a sample wrapped in a maize husk, warm, spicy, and so fresh it might still be photosynthesizing. You nod in thanks, your mouth slightly on fire. Across the aisle, a woman sells hand-woven sandals made of agave fibers. She has forearms like tree trunks and a face lined with deep sun-earned wisdom. You pick up a pair and she gives you a look that says, "Those are not for decoration, my soft-footed friend." You sheepishly set them down. There are animal stalls too. Rows of chirping turkeys, small barking dogs Tachichi prized for both companionship and occasionally food, and even a rather bored-looking parrot preening itself atop a cage. The dogs glance at you with suspicion. You try not to look delicious. Currency here isn't coin-based. Instead, buyers use cacao beans, cotton cloaks, and even quaintly woven cloth strips as tender. You overhear someone bartering 6 cacao beans for a fish hook. Someone else haggles over the value of a rabbit hide. You dig around in your sash, wondering if any of the offerings you delivered earlier accidentally included a small fortune. Probably not. You pass a stall dedicated entirely to obsidian blades, arrowheads, and tiny mirrors so polished you catch your own reflection for a second. You're startled by how much dirt is on your face, and possibly how haunted you look. You wipe it off with the edge of your cloak and move on. Then you reach what might be the most sacred section of all the food court. Women in brightly embroidered huipils grind maize on metates, turning it into smooth dough for tamales and tortillas. A vendor pours foamy cacao into painted cups using a carved stick to whisk it until it froths. You're handed one and the taste is rich bitter and spiced with chili and vanilla. Hot chocolate, yes, but the kind that slaps you awake and then hugs you. This isn't the chocolate of European sweets. This is Zocolat ceremonial, energizing sacred. It feeds the heart, the vendor tells you with a wink. and keeps the priest from dozing off mid-sacrifice. You try to laugh, but it comes out as more of a gulp. Somewhere near the edge of the marketplace, a man is selling painted codices, accordion-folded books made of bark paper and covered in glyphs and vibrant scenes. You lean in trying to decode one. It seems to show a man turning into a hummingbird, then reappearing beside a cactus. Huitzilopochtli, the vendor, explains. God of war and sun. Born fully armed, very punctual, he offers to paint your destiny into a codex page. You politely decline, uncertain if yours would end in glory obscurity, or it seems likely some comically premature sacrifice involving bees. Historians still debate whether these markets were tightly regulated by temple officials or more self-organizing. What's clear is that they were essential to the functioning of the empire both economically and socially. They offered not just goods but gossip alliances and the occasional matchmaker's whisper. You wander into a quieter row now where artisans sit weaving feather mosaics. The plumes shimmer in shades of turquoise gold and iridescent green. Each piece is impossibly intricate birds of paradise warriors, mid-leap flowers bursting open. One artisan, an older man with eyes like smoked glass, lets you touch a single Quetzal feather. It's lighter than you expect. Softer, too. You exhale slowly, feeling briefly unburdened. You sit beside him for a moment, just watching. He doesn't speak, and neither do you. The hush is broken only by the rustle of feathers and the distant calls from the food stalls. You think about how many hands made this city possible, how many calluses' prayers, arguments, and clever trades it took to keep the obsidian wheels turning. The artisan eventually nods once and turns back to his work. You take that as your cue. You head back into the central plaza where the towering Templo Mayor casts an angular shadow like a sundial made by titans. From here, the entire city stretches out in shimmering lines canals like blue veins, causeways like ribbons, rooftops burning gold in the sun. You pass by a group of children playing Patali, a board game involving beans and a crisscrossed grid. They invite you to play. You sit cross-legged, learning as you go. The goal seems to be part luck, part strategy, and part convincing the other player you're harmless. You lose, obviously, but they give you a piece of roasted amaranth as a consolation prize, so technically you win. A young woman walks by carrying a basket of axolotls in clay jars. She offers to show you one. The creature floats serenely smiling with eternal ambiguity. You stare at its fringed gills, its slow blink. It doesn't know what's coming, neither do you. For now there's only this sunlight on stone, the taste of chocolate and chili lingering in your mouth, and the soothing chaos of a marketplace that's existed longer than many kingdoms. You head toward the priest quarters. Another errand awaits. You are not yet sacrificed. Progress. You arrive at the priest's quarters just as the shadows begin to stretch across the plaza, long and lean like the tail of a jaguar. It's quieter here, eerily so. The bustling noise of the marketplace still hums in the distance, but within the walls of this compound, everything feels muffled. You half expect your sandals to squeak just to break the silence. A young novice greets you. He's about your age, maybe younger, and dressed in plain cotton robes, his scalp shaved, except for a single tuft of hair like a lopsided brush. He squints at the reed scroll you're carrying and nods. You're the messenger, he asks, already knowing the answer. He takes the scroll and gestures for you to follow. The corridors are narrow and lined with carved stone, the kind that seems to watch you as you pass. The scent of copal incense hangs in the air, earthy, piney, and somehow a little like burned oranges. It sticks to your nostrils and tugs at something ancient in the back of your brain. You're led into a low-ceilinged room where a group of high-ranking priests sit cross-legged in a circle, chanting in deep, rhythmic tones. Their faces are painted half red, half black, and their eyes flick up briefly when you enter before returning to the obsidian bowl in the center of the circle. It's filled with water, or maybe blood. Honestly, it's best not to check. The novice quietly places the scroll beside one of the priests. No one speaks to you directly. You're clearly not expected to stay. Still, you can't help but linger at the doorway, curiosity warring with common sense. A fire crackles gently in a stone brazier. Behind it, painted on the wall, is a mural of the five suns, a cosmic timeline that lays out the universe's repeated cycles of creation and destruction. In this mythology, the current era, the fifth sun, only continues as long as the gods are nourished with regular human offerings. You shiver. Not because it's cold. The priest catches your eye. Just one glance and you're moving again. You back out, bowing slightly, nearly tripping over your own feet in the process. Outside, you suck in the open air like it's your first breath in hours. You lean against a sun-warmed stone wall and let the light bake away your nerves. You're not sure what they were reading in that scroll. Some festival plans may be a list of potential tribute, but it felt heavy, consequential. Historians still argue whether Aztec sacrifices were purely religious, politically strategic, or a mix of both. Some say the rituals were part of statecraft reinforcing power through awe and fear. Others point to the deep spiritual beliefs about cosmic balance, where blood offerings literally kept the sun moving across the sky. Either way, it's not a job you'd apply for. You wander over to a shaded courtyard nearby where two older priests are sitting on a bench, sipping pulque from gourd bowls. Pulque fermented from the sap of the maguey plant is milky, tangy, and just alcoholic enough to make you feel like maybe today won't end in a ritual ceremony involving obsidian knives. One of the priests pats the stone beside him, inviting you to sit. You oblige mostly because you're not entirely sure how to say no without invoking a divine punishment. He tells you a story, voice soft and slow, almost like a lullaby. It's about a woman who turned into a spider for weaving too much, a god who grew jealous of maize, and a man who became a jaguar simply by refusing to die. It's not exactly linear. It doesn't need to be. He chuckles halfway through. The gods are funny, he says, except when they're not. That seems to sum things up. A young boy runs past shouting about a cloud that looks like Quetzalcoatl. You look up. It really does coiled and feathery, arcing across the blue sky like a divine doodle. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is one of the more merciful gods. Associated with wisdom, wind, and culture, you cling to that idea, that somewhere up there at least one of them might be rooting for you. The priest finishes his pulque and hands you the empty bowl with a wink. Return this to the kitchen and maybe they'll give you something sweet. You nod and head off, only tripping once on the uneven stones. The kitchen, as it turns out, is a hot, bustling chaos of clay pots, bubbling stews, and women who wield wooden spoons like battlefield weapons. You deliver the bowl and one of them hands you a small tamal wrapped in a green leaf. It's filled with squash blossom and beans, sweet, earthy, and comforting. You eat it slowly, perched on a low wall near the temple's gardens. Hummingbirds dart between flowers like tiny, frantic spirits. A lizard watches you from a sunny rock, unimpressed. You offer it a crumbs, which it ignores. This temple complex isn't just for rituals. It's also a hub of education, astronomy, and healing. You pass a side room filled with herbalists grinding plants into pastes and powders. One woman shows you a jar of salve made from crushed marigolds and tobacco, used to soothe snake bites. Another has a bundle of dried mushrooms she claims can open the spirit's eye. You politely decline a demonstration. Some of these treatments are surprisingly effective. Others, well, historians still debate whether they cured more headaches or caused them. You catch sight of a large stone calendar carved into a courtyard wall. Not the one everyone thinks of, the round sunstone, but another more functional design used for tracking rituals, harvests, and celestial events. It's terrifyingly accurate. You trace your finger over the glyphs, wondering what today's symbol means. The priest beside you mutters something about flint and movement. That doesn't sound like a good omen. As the sun dips lower, casting the plaza in amber light, you start to feel the first real pangs of exhaustion. You've walked half the city, delivered scrolls, eaten at least 3 foods you didn't recognize, and possibly angered 3 minor gods with your indecision. And still the day isn't done. A hand rests lightly on your shoulder. It's the novice from earlier. Time to prepare, he says. You blink. For what? He smiles, but there's a tiredness in it. You'll see. You follow him through a narrow passage behind the temple, the light fading with every step. You think about the blood bowl, the mural of the 5 sons, the man who turned into a jaguar by refusing to die. You're not sure if you're ready for what's next, but you go anyway. The passage opens into a chamber bathed in flickering torchlight. The walls are alive with color murals depicting gods with twisting limbs and sharp feathers, warriors mid-leap, and rows of stars arranged like sacred puzzles. Everything glows with that strange orange hue that makes shadows look like they're breathing. You're handed a tunic, not one of your usual cotton ones either. This is ceremonial garb, stiff with embroidery and fringed with small seashells that clink softly as you move. The novice gestures toward a low stool and you sit obediently while he daubs your face with red ochre and dark charcoal. It's not unpleasant, cool, gritty, and strangely grounding. You'll be part of the procession, he explains, tying a woven belt around your waist. Every cycle messengers like you carry the calendar's final breath into the new day. You blink. That sounds poetic. Is it dangerous? He shrugs. Only if the gods are cranky. Helpful. The ceremony takes place at the top of the Templo Mayor, an imposing double pyramid dedicated to both Huitzilopochtli, god of war, and Tlaloc, god of rain. Climbing it is no joke. The steps are steep, designed to make you feel small and humble. By the halfway point, your thighs are begging for mercy, and the seashells on your tunic chime with every heaving breath. You're part of a small line of similarly dressed runners, each carrying a clay object, symbolizing a passing month mace, a frog, a fish made of turquoise. Your item, a tiny obsidian knife. Of course it is. At the summit, a group of priests stands in a crescent arms raised to the twilight sky. You're not alone. Dozens of others have gathered, from high nobles to visiting traders, all watching as the sun slips behind the mountains like it's ducking out of responsibility. A low drumbeat begins slow and steady, like a giant heart sinking with the earth's pulse. The priest to your left leans in. You'll walk to the center, place your offering in the bowl, then back away without turning. Why not turn? He raises one eyebrow. It would be rude to show your backside to the gods. Right, of course. When it's your turn, the world seems to slow. You feel every grain of sand beneath your sandals, every gaze on your back. You walk forward, heart pounding, the obsidian knife surprisingly heavy in your palm. The bowl before you is wide and lined with gold leaf. You gently place the knife inside, then take 3 deliberate steps back. You don't trip. That feels like a victory. The priests chant, and one by one the offerings are blessed with incense and water. Then comes the part everyone's been waiting for or dreading. A sacrifice. Not human thank the gods this time, but a bird, likely a quail, small and fluttering nervously in the priest's hands. It's over quickly with prayers muttered and blood dripped onto the stone. The smoke thickens. The people cheer softly, not raucously, more like a sigh of relief. The gods are satisfied. For now. Historians still argue whether these rituals were truly universal, or if some cities within the empire resisted them. Smaller towns in distant provinces often adapted the traditions to suit local beliefs, blending old gods with Aztec ones like a theological stew. As you descend the stairs, muscles trembling, a few spectators clap you on the back. You're not sure if they think you're brave or if they're just glad it wasn't them carrying the knife. The celebration spills into the plaza below. Music picks up flutes and drums and a rhythmic rattle from dancers in feathered headdresses. There's food too, steaming pots of pozole, fried tortillas, and something that might be roasted grasshoppers. You try one. Crunchy, smoky, not bad. Probably won't ask for seconds. Children dart between legs, waving paper effigies of animals and gods. One hands you a tiny jaguar made of corn husks. You tuck it into your belt for luck. The shell-fringed tunic still rustles when you move, and you feel like a slightly ridiculous wind chime. The night deepens, but the city doesn't sleep. You pass groups of elders sipping pulque and debating calendar reforms. One insists the next cycle will bring floods. Another predicts more wars. A third says quite seriously that jaguars are reincarnated tax collectors. You nod solemnly. Who's to say? At one point, you sit near a small bonfire, letting the heat soak into your legs. Across from you, a merchant from the coast tells tales of storm gods and pearl divers. He offers you a smoked fish wrapped in banana leaves. You trade him your last piece of cacao. A fair deal. Somewhere in the darkness, a flute begins a haunting melody. It drifts like mist over the crowd, wrapping around your thoughts. You lean back, stare at the stars, thousands of them sharp and silver against the black, and feel impossibly tiny. And yet, not alone. The Aztecs believed that stars were the spirits of warriors and women who died in childbirth, those who gave their lives for the cycle to continue. You wonder what kind of star you'd be. Probably one that flickers nervously whenever someone mentions obsidian. A priest walks past and you ask him quietly, cautiously what the knife symbol meant. He pauses, smiles faintly. It cuts away the old, he says, so the new can live. Then he's gone. You stay there a while longer, the fire crackling, the stars blinking, and the obsidian knife bowl somewhere behind you, heavy with promises. Tomorrow you think maybe you'll ask for a less symbolic item, like a frog. The dawn creeps over Tenochtitlan like a soft whisper, and you find yourself on the causeway leading out of the city. The air smells faintly of damp earth and cooked maize, the kind of scent that makes you think of home, or what you might call home in a place this bustling and vast. You pause to watch the lake's surface ripple in the early light, the water lilies nodding as if in greeting. Today your task is less ceremonial and more practical. You're to join the Poshteka, the long-distance merchant class. Not only traders, but often spies and diplomats in disguise, they are the city's eyes and ears beyond the empire's borders. You're given a woven bag filled with small goods. Jade beads, feathers, obsidian blades, and a handful of brightly colored quetzal feathers. All carefully selected to impress the city-states you'll visit. As you walk, you can't help but notice the careful engineering that makes the causeways so sturdy, built from reeds, mud, and stone, designed to withstand the weight of countless feet and the push of the lake's currents. The chinampas, the floating gardens that grow maize beans and squash, sway gently just beyond the banks. Their neat rows form a patchwork quilt of green and gold that feels like a secret whispered only to those who know where to look. You join a caravan of Pashteka traders, their faces weathered by sun and wind. Their clothes are adorned with intricate embroidery indicating their rank and the regions they visited. One carries a small carved box filled with cacao beans, the currency of the elite, prized more than gold by some. Another proudly brandishes a conch shell trumpet, used to announce their arrival in foreign lands. The journey to the Mixtec city of Coixtlahuaca, over 300 miles away, will take weeks. You'll cross jagged mountains, dense forests, and dusty plains. The merchants joke about the mountain gods who like to trip travelers on rocky paths, and the forest spirits who might steal your sandals if you're not paying attention. The trade isn't just goods but stories, alliances, and sometimes subtle threats. You're taught the art of diplomacy, the delicate dance of flattery and warning, always underpinned by a quiet show of strength. Your jade beads are more than jewelry. They're a message we are wealthy, connected, and not to be trifled with. At night, you camp under a sky blanketed with stars so bright, it feels like the heavens have spilled down to touch the earth. The fire crackles, casting long shadows that flicker like ancient spirits. The traders share tales of their travels of a city where women govern of a lake that glows with the strange blue light of a mountain, said to breathe fire. You listen wide-eyed, imagining these places as vividly as your own home. Sleep comes in fits and starts. You dream of quetzal feathers floating gently down, turning into birds that sing songs you almost understand. The Pochteca remind you to stay alert. Bandits and wild animals aren't the only dangers. Political rivalries can be just as deadly. Historians still debate whether the Pochteca's role as spies was more myth than reality, or a crucial part of Aztec statecraft. Some say their secret messages were embedded in woven cloth or disguised in market bartering, an ancient form of encrypted communication. Others think the empire's vast network relied more on loyal governors and less on cloak and dagger intrigue. Your own role, though minor, feels important. Every bead you trade, every story you share stitches the empire tighter, weaving a web of influence that stretches far beyond the lake. When you finally return exhausted but exhilarated, the city greets you with a festival. Drums, thunder dancers whirl in feathered masks, and the smell of tamales fills the air. You feel a little like a hero even if you spent most of the journey worrying you'd step on a scorpion or offend a local chieftain. As you settle back into your place in Tenochtitlan's ever-busy rhythm, you think about the delicate balance of trade diplomacy and showmanship that holds this empire together. It's not just power through swords and sacrifice, but power through connection and a little bit of showmanship too. And somewhere deep in the folds of your memory, the soft clink of quetzal feathers and jade beads still rings a reminder of how vast and complex the Aztec world truly was. The city never truly sleeps, but by midday the market square is its loudest self. A kaleidoscope of scents, colors, and sounds that swirl into a kind of warm, dizzying symphony. You find yourself weaving through stalls draped with woven cotton cloths, baskets overflowing with chili peppers, and piles of shining obsidian knives that glint ominously in the sun. You're drawn toward the section where the herbs and medicines are sold. The curers known as Teisatl are a fascinating bunch. A mix of science, spirituality, and a dash of theater. One elder woman waves a bundle of copal incense, the fragrant smoke curling into the air like a lazy serpent. Another gestures toward a bowl of crushed maguey leaves, explaining how its juice can soothe fevers and wounds. It's all very hands-on. You watch as a young healer demonstrates the preparation of a poultice, made from crushed pumpkin seeds and powdered charcoal, something they swear calms inflammation. The textures and smells combine into a sensory map that would probably keep you awake if you let it. Interestingly, the Aztecs practiced a kind of proto-acupuncture, using tiny obsidian splinters to stimulate pressure points. It sounds painful, but locals swear by its effectiveness. You hesitate imagining the sensation, then decide to stick to watching. Then there's the slightly odd side of Aztec medicine, the belief in supernatural causes behind illness. Evil spirits, curses, and imbalance in the body's humors, blood water and wind were all thought to affect health. A Ticitle might chant use ritual masks or perform dances to coax out these invisible assailants. Modern historians still argue whether this spiritual approach actually aided physical recovery through placebo effects or social support. As you explore, you notice the prices a tiny packet of dried herbs might cost the equivalent of a few maize kernels. But a full consultation with a high-ranking healer demands a richer offering. Sometimes even jade or fine cloth. This medicinal economy is part barter, part faith, and part social standing. You try to picture yourself as a patient. You're sick maybe with a fever or persistent cough. Would you prefer a sharp obsidian blade carving away the infection or a soothing massage using freshly picked herbs? Would you trust the chants and dances to do as much healing as the salves? Walking past a stall selling beauty powders made from crushed flowers and volcanic ash, you reflect on the Aztecs' detailed knowledge of botany. They even used crocodile dung as sunscreen, an idea that's equal parts horrifying and strangely practical in a world without SPF. You wonder if modern sunscreen makers have tried to improve on that formula. Around you, children run by, chasing bright-colored birds. Vendors shout prices in melodious calls, and musicians strike up a lilting tune on wooden flutes. The market is more than commerce. It's a meeting place for community knowledge and stories. In the middle of this vibrant chaos, you realize that Aztec medicine wasn't just about curing the body. It was about healing the spirit, connecting to the divine, and weaving society together in a shared ritual of care. And if you're lucky, maybe it could soothe your restless mind too. You're standing now at the base of one of the many neighborhood temples in Tenochtitlan. Not the big one, not the glorious Templo Mayor, but one of the dozens of smaller ones that dot the city like little stone mushrooms, sprouting up wherever people live. Work or quietly panic about whether they've appeased the right god this week. This one is dedicated to Zeptotec the Flayed One, which is already a promising start. You're trying not to make eye contact with the ceremonial statue, which wears a full suit of human skin, draped like a grotesque poncho over an otherwise sculpted physique. It's unsettling, yes, but somehow not out of place. You've seen enough today that your brain has already decided to stop logging trauma and start filing everything under normal. A few priests drift by their faces, calm their garments red from ceremonial dye, or so you hope. They're preparing for tonight's ritual. See, this neighborhood doesn't do the big public sacrifices. Those are for the capital's grand calendar. But everyone has their own local gods to keep happy and their own local expectations to fulfill. You're handed a bundle of maize and flowers and offering, which you hope signals you as a participant, rather than, well, the offering. Someone murmurs a greeting and invites you to help set up for the Tlaxepualistli ceremony. It's springtime, and that means honoring renewal through a festival that includes music feasting and, yes, simulated battle. You watch as mock warriors are led into the square. They're young, painted in symbolic colors, some smiling, some stone-faced. Their task reenact a battle where they're bound and must fight off heavily armed opponents. Not exactly fair, but then it's not supposed to be. It's pageantry, sometimes deadly pageantry. The symbolism, you're told, it's about corn. Life dying and being reborn. The husk is stripped away like skin so the new plant can emerge. Beautiful metaphor. Slightly unnerving literalization. The man explaining this to you seems proud. He pats a boy on the shoulder who's about to participate, smiling like a parent sending a kid off to summer camp. You nod slowly, adjusting your understanding of what counts as childhood enrichment. Historians still argue whether every small community really held blood ceremonies like these, or if some of these accounts were exaggerated by the Spanish for drama, or even by the Aztecs themselves to boost their fierce reputation. Either way, you are now very aware of just how intricate, how locally vibrant, and how deeply spiritual life was even in the corners of this empire. And it's not just temples. You pass by a row of homes where women are making tortillas in open courtyards. The scent is warm and comforting corn and smokestone and sweat. You pause to watch the rhythm of grinding maize on a metat, the practiced flick of a hand, flipping the tortillas over a clay griddle. One woman hums softly a lullaby that must be older than the empire itself. One child offers you a chunk of tamal. It's stuffed with beans and pumpkin seed, wrapped in a steaming corn husk. You've just about forgotten the whole human sacrifice part when someone points out the community altar again and jokes that Sipe Totek might want a bite too. You laugh a little too hard and quickly excuse yourself. As the sun sets, a drum begins to beat slow, deep like a heartbeat in the stone. The plaza fills with families carrying bundles of flowers and feathers. Incense curls up into the evening air. And you realize that for all the bloodshed this empire is remembered for, there's also something undeniably human and beautiful in this blend of fear and reverence, pageantry and prayer routine and risk. Oh, and then there's the clown. No, really. A local performer face painted with exaggerated expressions dances into the square to entertain the children. He juggles maize cobs and makes funny faces at the warriors. Ritual doesn't mean solemn all the time. There's space here even in the shadow of the gods for a bit of absurdity. It might be your favorite part of the day. You wander back toward your temporary sleeping quarters, somewhere between a guest house and a shared storage hut. You're full of tamal, slightly sunburnt, and deeply aware that your dreams tonight will be haunted by flayed gods and tortilla-slinging grandmas. But somehow that's starting to feel normal. Aztec normal. You awaken to the gentle sound of lake birds calling across the still water well and the less gentle thwack-thwack of someone pounding maize into masa not far from your ear. You've survived the night. Congratulations. A small, probably temporary victory. The city is already humming. Tenochtitlan doesn't do lazy mornings. By sunrise, traders are hauling woven baskets onto their backs. Temple acolytes are sweeping steps with stiff bristle brooms, and fishermen are poling through the canals, their long reeds dipping into the glassy surface. It's time for the daily pulse of the empire, the markets. You make your way toward Tlatelolco, the great market square. It's so enormous that even Spanish chroniclers, usually too busy being horrified or judgmental, couldn't help but be impressed. They claimed it rivaled anything in Europe. Tens of thousands of buyers and sellers gather here every day, and yes, you're going to get lost in it. Your nose guides you first. The scent is overwhelming in the best possible way. Chili peppers, roasted cocoa beans, dried fish, crushed herbs, and what might be fermented agave. Someone passes you with a basket of axolotls. Yes, the adorable little salamanders, except here they're not pets, they're lunch. You try not to make eye contact. You drift past rows of pottery so finely detailed, it looks like it should be in a museum gift shop. There are sandals with embroidered straps, obsidian blades so sharp they could shave a hummingbird, and textiles dyed in colors you don't even have words for. Blue isn't just blue. It's turquoise, it's indigo, it's... Whatever happens when crushed insect shells meet divine favor? A woman calls out to you offering a bowl of pulque. It's milky, slightly sour, and made from fermented maguey sap. You sip cautiously. It's not beer, it's not wine, and it's definitely not juice, but it's sacred. So you nod appreciatively like a proper guest. The drink fizzes faintly on your tongue. Maybe it's the start of a good day. Now, here's where it gets serious. You're ushered by your guide to the section where tribute items are being tallied. This isn't just commerce, it's the engine of empire. The Aztecs didn't control their realm with standing armies everywhere. They ruled with logistics. Tribute flowed into the capital like blood to the heart. You see towering stacks of cotton mantles from the Huastecs, copper tools from Michoacan, Quetzal feathers from deep forests, jaguar pelts from distant jungles, cacao beans from the warm coasts, and salt from the arid flats far to the north. Everything has its place. Everything has its price. And it's not chaos. There are judges and officials at every turn calmly ensuring no one gets too rowdy, no deals go sour, and no tribute goes unrecorded. They carry painted codices folding screen-like books where they note quantities and origin towns using elegant pictographs. Historians still argue how centralized this system truly was, whether the market economy functioned alongside state bureaucracy or was subsumed into it. But the result is clear: Tenochtitlan was fed and funded with precision. A whisper beside you, someone is selling counterfeit cacao beans. Not fake chocolate exactly, but cleverly shaped mud pellets. You snort softly, imagining some unlucky noble trying to make a hot drink and ending up with a cup of swamp. Justice here is swift, though counterfeiters face fines, beatings, or worse. You quietly step away from the scammer, not wanting to be associated with such dessert-related crimes. It strikes you just how cashless this economy is. No coins clink in pockets. Aztecs deal in goods. Cacao beans are the go-to medium, followed by cotton cloaks, obsidian knives, and even rubber balls. You could, if you wanted, buy a rabbit with a handful of beans. Or an entire slave with a nice enough cloak. That part makes you pause. Yes, slaves are for sale. The term is looser than in other cultures. Most are debtors or criminals working off obligations. They can marry, own property, even buy their freedom. And some enter servitude voluntarily, hoping for stability or to avoid harsher fates. You try not to dwell too long on this moral tightrope. This is, after all, a society with its own logic. As you're inspecting a particularly shiny obsidian mirror, a youth bumps into you accidentally, or not, you're not sure. And you fumble the mirror, catching it just in time. He apologizes with an overly toothy grin, and your pouch of cacao beans feels suspiciously lighter. You make a mental note: keep your valuables in your sandals next time. Street smarts are universal. At midday, a loud conch blast silences the square. A line of dancers begins a slow, hypnotic performance at the plaza's edge. Their feathered costumes shimmer like living fire. The dance is part devotion, part advertisement for a feast happening tomorrow. Everyone stops for a moment, not out of obligation, but because here art is a public good. You feel the rhythm in your chest. As the crowd parts, you spot something unexpected: a stall offering writing services. A scribe with a painted cloak sits beside a table covered in deer hide and bark paper. A merchant dictates a message. The scribe listens, then paints tiny, precise symbols: footprints for journeys, ears for listening, bundles for tribute. It's a visual language dense with meaning. You wonder how many lives were preserved, how many deals sealed by these painted words. And somewhere in the middle of all this, you realize this isn't just a market. It's a nervous system. It's where the empire breathes, listens, adjusts. Tlatelolco isn't just the economic core of the Aztec world, it's its soul. You head back towards your quarters, pulco still fizzing a little in your veins. Ears full of street chants, nose saturated with spice and smoke. For a moment, you almost forget the gods that hover behind every exchange. Almost. You follow the steady drum beats as they fade softly into the morning mist, carrying you toward one of the most vibrant corners of Aztec life, the great marketplaces of Tenochtitlan. The sun has barely risen, casting a pale golden glow over the sprawling city. Yet the Tianguis, the open-air market, already hums with a gentle, steady pulse. It's here amid the stalls, voices, and scents that you'll find a unique rhythm of everyday life. The heartbeat of a civilization that thrived long before you were born. And believe me, this isn't your typical modern grocery run. No buzzing fluorescent lights or beep-beep scanners, just the soft rustle of woven baskets and the murmur of trade slow and steady enough to lull you deeper into a calm, relaxed state. Stepping onto the cobblestone pathways slick with morning dew, you notice the diversity of goods laid out with careful precision. Bright red chilies glistening under the sun sit piled like tiny flames beside plump tomatoes and glossy beans. You hear the soft clinking of copper bells worn by merchants and the faint crackle of corn husks. Women adorned in intricately embroidered huipils of soft cotton negotiate prices with a gentle back and forth, their voices low but warm. The atmosphere is inviting, mildly bustling, but never frantic like the steady tick of a grandfather clock. You might almost close your eyes and imagine the stories these stones could tell, worn smooth by centuries of feet that shuffled, bargained, and wandered through this very place. The marketplace, however, was far more than a center for trading food. Here, artisans displayed their crafts with quiet pride. Master weavers unraveling vibrant dyed cotton cloth smiths, hammering delicate copper jewelry, and potters shaping earth into vessels destined to hold maize or sacred pulque. You can almost smell the fresh, earthy aroma of wet clay mingling with the sharp scent of burning copal resin from nearby altars, creating a sensory cocktail both calming and invigorating. And just when you think you've taken it all in, your eyes catch something unexpected. A small stall adorned with shimmering green beads carved from jade said to hold divine power. Nearby bundles of obsidian blades glint sharply, reminders of the tools both practical and ritualistic in Aztec life. The marketplace was a place where the mundane met the mystical, where everyday transactions quietly echoed with deeper meaning. One fascinating detail worth savoring: the Aztecs often used cacao beans as currency. Yes, the very same beans that later became the chocolate you might daydream about now, once clinked in the hands of merchants. In some stalls, cacao beans exchanged hands alongside Teoquitlatl tiny copper discs that functioned as coin-like tokens. But not every exchange was a simple matter of currency. Barter remained common, especially in more rural or specialized markets where goods traded like pieces of a slow-moving puzzle, carefully pieced together through negotiation and trust. Historians still debate the extent to which coinage was used, with some suggesting it was widespread, while others believe barter dominated the economic landscape. As you wander further, the market reveals itself as more than just a place of trade. It is a vibrant social hub where stories flow as freely as the pulque poured from clay jugs. You overhear whispered legends shared by elders sitting on woven mats, the faint laughter of children weaving between legs like playful shadows, and vendors exchanging news from distant towns. The marketplace is a living tapestry of human connection, a place where life pulses with gentle warmth, even as the world beyond demands sacrifice and ritual. If you pause at a food stall, the smells alone could whisk you into a tranquil daydream. There's the toasty aroma of Tlaxcali thin maize tortillas, freshly cooked on flat stones, mingling with the smoky scent of roasted chilies. Nearby, a vendor offers a small cup of pulque, the slightly fizzy, milky drink fermented from agave sap. Its taste is sweet with a mild sour tang, and people believed it had calming properties, easing the body and soul after the day's labors. Imagine taking a slow sip, feeling the cool liquid settle, gently grounding you in this moment of quiet normalcy. The sounds of the market are soothing in themselves, the rhythmic clatter of pottery, the soft murmur of bargaining voices, the occasional call of a merchant advertising the day's catch. Even the footsteps of passers-by light and unhurried add to this gentle symphony. Despite the sheer volume of people, thousands gathering daily, the market never feels overwhelming or chaotic. Instead, it moves with the easy grace of a slow river, each interaction part of a natural, unforced flow. And the people themselves. They are as varied as the goods they sell. You see noblewomen delicately inspecting feathers for their ceremonial garb, common farmers clutching small baskets of beans, and young apprentices learning the art of weaving or knife making. Everyone has a role, a purpose, and a place within this slowly turning wheel of life. One unexpected but charming quirk is how some vendors specialized in unusual goods like the axayacatl, tiny edible water bugs collected from lakes and prized as a delicacy, or fragrant herbs used not only for cooking but for healing. Some stalls might offer painted masks used in sacred dances, or bundles of dried flowers that perfume the air softly. These little details paint a picture of a society that, despite its complexity, took moments to savor the gentle, colorful pleasures of everyday existence. And through it all, the marketplace is framed by the sprawling temples and pyramids of the city. Ancient stone giants watching silently as life unfolds beneath their shadow. You might catch a glimpse of priests moving with purpose between the crowds, or musicians striking slow rhythmic beats that seem designed to soothe the soul rather than stir excitement. Historians continue to debate the exact scale and influence of these markets. Were they primarily economic centers, or did they serve a deeper social and religious function? Some argue that markets were integral to reinforcing social hierarchies and political alliances, while others see them as egalitarian spaces where all could mingle peacefully. Whatever the truth, it's clear that for the people of the Aztec Empire, the marketplace was much more than a place to buy food. It was a place to feel connected, to share stories, and to find a quiet kind of comfort amid a world often ruled by sacrifice and ceremony. As you finally step away from the lively stalls, the warmth of the sun climbing higher, you carry with you the soothing rhythm of the marketplace, the gentle ebb and flow of life in one of history's most fascinating civilizations. And in that moment, the thought of looming sacrifices and sharp obsidian knives fades into the background, replaced by the soft, steady pulse of trade laughter and human connection. You find yourself drifting now to the quieter, more intimate corners of Aztec life, where healing and medicine unfold with a slow, deliberate grace that's almost hypnotic. Imagine walking through a garden at dawn, the air thick with the earthy scent of damp soil and the sweet fragrance of wildflowers. This is the world where Aztec healers known as Taikatl worked their gentle craft. You can almost feel the soft touch of crushed herbs pressed to skin, the slow chant of a prayer rising beneath the canopy of ancient trees, and the comforting presence of ritual that blends the physical and spiritual in one soothing embrace. The Aztec medical system might surprise you with its sophistication. Contrary to the modern stereotype of pre-Columbian societies, as primitive, the Aztecs developed a vast pharmacopoeia, an elaborate collection of herbal remedies and healing practices. Their knowledge wasn't just practical, it was deeply embedded in their worldview, where the body, mind, and spirit were inseparable. Healing was less about rushing to fix an injury, and more about patiently restoring balance, a process both gentle and profound. As you walk among the medicinal plants, picture the healer's basket filled with carefully gathered herbs, roots, and flowers, each chosen for its specific properties. One of the more familiar herbs is Gymnasifiga, known to relieve pain and reduce fever, a natural aspirin of its day. Then there's Quetzalcoatl, a fragrant flower used to treat skin ailments, its petals crushed into soothing poultices. The healer's hands move slowly and deliberately, grinding the leaves with a smooth stone mortar, blending powders and resins with water or honey, creating balms and teas that might ease even the most stubborn aches. But it's not just the herbs themselves that fascinate. The process of healing was deeply ritualized. You can almost hear the soft sounds of teponaztli drums in the background, the steady heartbeat of ceremony meant to invite benevolent spirits and calm, restless souls. The patient lies on a mat woven from cotton and palm fibers, feeling the warmth of the sun filtering through woven reed walls. The Ticital chants softly invoking gods like Tlaloc, the rain deity whose blessings were essential for growth and renewal, or Sipe Totec, god of rebirth, whose symbolism connected to the shedding of skin and healing. One of the gentler, if somewhat quirky aspects of Aztec medicine was the use of crocodile dung as a healing agent for skin conditions. Yes, it sounds odd, but this was no careless choice. Crocodile dung was thought to possess certain purifying properties, perhaps, because the animal itself symbolized resilience and survival in the watery marshes surrounding the city. Some scholars still debate whether this treatment was actually effective or mainly symbolic part of a spiritual cleansing, rather than a physical cure. Either way, it's a fascinating glimpse into a world where nature, magic, and medicine were inseparable. The Aztecs also understood surgical procedures, albeit limited and slow. They practiced basic wound care using clean obsidian blades, razor-sharp tools crafted with precision to make incisions when necessary. You can imagine a calm, careful healer making a precise cut to drain an abscess or remove infected tissue, all while maintaining the patient's dignity and comfort. This wasn't rushed or brutal, it was thoughtful, accompanied by prayers and calming words. Illness to the Aztecs was often more than a mere biological problem. They believed that diseases could be caused by spiritual imbalance or punishment from the gods. This belief imbued healing with the spiritual weight, making the Teicatl both a physician and a shamanic guide. You can picture the healer performing ritual cleansings using smoke from copal incense, wafting it over the patient's body to banish evil spirits or harmful energies. Sometimes they used music and dance as part of the healing ceremony, the rhythmic drum beats coaxing the body and spirit back into harmony. As you imagine the quiet space where these healing rituals took place, you might notice the faint glow of candlelight, or the soft flicker of oil lamps casting gentle shadows on walls painted with symbols of protection and renewal. The room is warm and safe, a sanctuary from the worries of the outside world. The patient breathes slowly, soothed by the steady cadence of prayers and the tender application of herbal poultices. This is a world where the senses are gently engaged to nurture recovery aroma sounds and touch, all combining in a slow restorative symphony. What's truly remarkable is how many Aztec healing practices echo in modern herbal medicine. Many plants they used have been validated by contemporary science for their medicinal properties. The ancient Ticitls, careful observations and slow hands-on approach remind you that healing is as much an art as it is a science. A blend of empathy, knowledge, and patience. This legacy quietly persists in natural remedies and holistic health approaches today, connecting you across centuries to a tradition of care and attentiveness. And let's not forget the role of food in health. The Aztecs understood that diet was a cornerstone of wellness, recommending maize beans and amaranth for strength and vitality. They avoided overeating and believed that moderation contributed to a clear mind and steady body. Imagine yourself sharing a simple meal of these nourishing staples, the flavors mild and comforting, much like the healing process itself. Slow, deliberate, and grounding. As you settle into this gentle narrative, you might feel your own breath slowing, your muscles loosening, and your thoughts softening. The Aztec healing tradition, with its mix of natural remedies and ritual care, offers a soothing lesson that wellness is a gradual, unfolding, a tender balancing act between body and spirit. In this slow, rhythmic world of herbs and chants, you can almost sense a quiet, enduring calm that reaches across time, inviting you to rest. Historians still argue about the exact role of the ticitle and the extent of their medical knowledge. Was their healing primarily spiritual, or did it have measurable physiological effects? Were their rituals as essential as their remedies? The answers remain elusive, adding to the gentle mystery of this ancient practice. So as you breathe in the faint scent of crushed herbs and listen to the imagined murmur of prayers, allow yourself to drift deeper into the peaceful world of Aztec healing. A place where medicine was a slow art, a blend of nature, spirit, and human kindness. Here in the cool shade of this ancient garden of knowledge, you find not just cures for the body, but balm for the restless mind. The rhythm of Aztec life carries you forward now into the bustling world of markets and daily trades where the pulse of the empire beats steadily through its vibrant commerce. Picture yourself wandering the vast marketplace of Tlatelolco, the twin city and sister to Tenochtitlan, a place so lively and colorful it could almost lull you into a slow, soothing trance. Here, every corner teems with the gentle clamor of bartering voices, the rustle of woven textiles, and the delicate clink of pottery, all wrapped in the faint scent of fresh cacao and ripened fruit. Markets were the heart of Aztec daily routine, a place where people gathered not just to trade goods but to connect, share stories, and partake in the slow dance of community. As you stroll past stalls piled high with vibrant chilies, twisted amaranth grains, and carefully carved obsidian blades, you might find yourself easing into the easy cadence of negotiations where time is flexible, and the gentle art of persuasion unfolds like a slow melody, a mainstream fact to ground you here. The Tlatelolco market was said by early Spanish visitors to be the largest in the Americas, drawing tens of thousands every day. Vendors sold everything from maize and beans to exotic feathers and precious stones, creating a microcosm of the empire's rich resources. It's almost mesmerizing to imagine the variety and volume with merchants carefully stacking their goods on woven mats, beckoning passers-by with mild smiles and practiced calls. But markets weren't just about material exchange. They were places where social rules and customs played out in subtle ways. For instance, women often held a central role as merchants, skillfully balancing their household duties with the careful management of their stalls. Some scholars still debate the extent of female economic power in Aztec society, but it's clear they were key players in these communal spaces, contributing to the slow, steady hum of daily life. As you imagine the scene, you might notice a peculiar but charming detail. Some traders used tiny whistles or clay rattles to announce their wares, producing a soft, repetitive sound that might remind you of a gentle lullaby or a morning chorus of birds. It's an oddly soothing soundtrack for commerce, far from the harsh cries of modern marketplaces. This subtle soundscape helped create an atmosphere where bargaining felt more like a calm conversation than a stressful negotiation. Food, of course, was central to these markets, and the Aztecs had a surprisingly diverse diet. Beyond maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters' staples, there were chilies, amaranth chia seeds, and even insects like grasshoppers and larvae, which you might find curious but were prized sources of protein. Imagine tasting a slow-roasted grasshopper seasoned with mild spices, its crunchiness and unexpected but satisfying texture. You might not rush to order it, but the idea invites you to consider how tastes evolve gently with culture and availability. Another fascinating aspect is the trade of cacao, the bitter, energizing seed that was ground into a frothy beverage enjoyed by nobles and warriors alike. This drink, served cold or warm, was often flavored with vanilla and spices and could be thick and slightly bitter, quite different from the sweet chocolate you know today. Picture a noblewoman sipping this slow, dark potion, feeling it warm her from the inside out as the marketplace buzzes softly around her. Markets also served as centers for information and gossip places, where news traveled on foot as quickly as goods changed hands. Imagine overhearing whispered talks about the latest political maneuvers or upcoming festivals. The soft murmur of voices blending with the rustling of cloth and the occasional laughter of children darting between stalls. It's a human tapestry woven from the threads of everyday interaction. Merchants themselves formed an important social class known as pochteca. These were long-distance traders who traveled across the empire and beyond, sometimes for weeks or months, bringing back exotic goods like jade, tropical bird feathers, and precious metals. The pochteca were not just traders, but also informal spies and diplomats, moving slowly and deliberately through unfamiliar lands, gathering information and maintaining the empire's vast network. Interestingly, these traders had their own rituals and patron gods. Yakatacutli, the god of commerce and travelers, was invoked for safe journeys and successful deals. You can almost hear the quiet prayers whispered under breath as merchants load their canoes or shoulder their bundles, beginning long journeys that demanded patience and endurance as much as skill. Despite the thriving markets, life was not without its restrictions and peculiar rules. For instance, certain goods were reserved for the nobility, like fine cotton cloths, dyed with bright colors, or luxurious feathers from exotic birds. These sumptuary laws kept social order intact, a slow, invisible thread weaving through commerce and daily life. It's a reminder that even in this lively open marketplace, the pace of social mobility was gentle and controlled. Some historians debate how free the markets truly were. Was trade always peaceful and regulated? Or did occasional conflicts and competitive tensions break out? The evidence is mixed, but the overall impression is one of a system designed to maintain calm and order, a slow but steady rhythm that supported the empire's stability. As you imagine the marketplace fading into twilight, the soft glow of oil lamps beginning to dot the streets, you might feel a quiet appreciation for this carefully balanced world. It's a place where the pulse of daily life beats gently, where trade and tradition intertwine like the delicate threads of woven baskets and textiles. Markets in the Aztec Empire weren't just centers of commerce. They were vital hubs of social life, cultural exchange, and economic stability. They offer you a slow, rich journey into how people connected, negotiated, and lived, reminding you that beneath the grandeur of empires lies the soothing, rhythmic pulse of everyday life. So as you imagine the distant calls of merchants, the soft rustle of maize husks, and the gentle murmur of deals struck under the calm gaze of the setting sun, allow yourself to relax into this timeless scene. The marketplace is not just a place of exchange, but a living, breathing story. A lullaby of human connection and gentle commerce that softly echoes across centuries. You continue your slow journey through the intricate world of Aztec society, now drawn toward the sacred ceremonies and festivals that wove a gentle thread of rhythm and meaning through daily life. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast open plaza in Tenochtitlan, the air filled with the subtle scent of copal incense and the soft murmur of voices blending into a comforting, low hum. Around you, people prepare for a festival dedicated to one of the many Aztec gods, a time when everyday worries fade into the background and the city breathes as one in a measured, tranquil celebration. The Aztecs had an elaborate calendar with nearly 24 major festivals throughout the solar year, each tied to specific gods, agricultural cycles, or cosmological events. These weren't hurried occasions, but slow, deliberate processes designed to honor and renew the delicate balance between the earthly and divine. For example, the festival of Tlaxochimaco, a month dedicated to flowers and fertility, unfolded over days filled with quiet offerings of blossoms, gentle dances, and soft songs that almost seem like lullabies to the gods themselves. One of the most fascinating aspects of these ceremonies is how deeply sensory and immersive they were. You can imagine the warm glow of countless candles flickering gently in the dusk, the rhythmic beat of drums pulsing slowly through the plaza, and the faint rustle of feathered costumes brushing softly against skin. The sounds, scents, and sights created a cocoon of calm reverence that enveloped everyone present, drawing them into a shared experience that transcended ordinary time. A well-known fact about Aztec festivals is their strong connection to agriculture and fertility. The success of the maize harvest, after all, was vital to the survival of the people, and the gods were honored with slow, careful rituals meant to secure their blessings. Picture farmers pausing their work, heads bowed, as they offer simple gifts of corn and flowers, their movements deliberate and unhurried like a quiet prayer whispered to the earth itself. Among these festivals, the Panquetzalistli stands out, dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war. While the idea of war might conjure images of frantic battles, this festival was actually marked by slow, symbolic acts. Warriors adorned themselves with colorful feathers and marched with measured steps, their ceremonial movements blending honor with a kind of graceful dignity. The focus was not on violence, but on renewal, the cyclical nature of life and death expressed through ritual. Historians still debate the precise meanings of some festival practices, but the overall tone was one of profound respect and gentle rhythm. You might be surprised to learn that music played a crucial role, but not the loud, overwhelming kind. Instead, soft flutes, gentle rattles, and the low resonance of drums created a soothing backdrop, encouraging participants to slip into a meditative state. It's easy to imagine the calming effect this had on the crowd, binding them together in shared purpose, much like the gentle hum of a lullaby easing a restless child to sleep. Food was also woven delicately into festival life. Special dishes were prepared slowly and with care, often featuring ingredients considered sacred like maize tortillas, brushed with honey, or sweetened tamales steamed over gentle coals. These meals weren't just about nourishment, but about connection to the land, to the gods, and to each other. Imagine savoring a small bite of this food, its mild sweetness and familiar texture, grounding you in the moment, a sensory anchor amid the ceremonial flow. You might notice that some festivals included symbolic gift exchanges or slow processions, where community members wore simple but meaningful costumes. Sometimes animals, sometimes gods. These gentle masquerades were less about spectacle and more about embodying a shared story, a living myth passed down through generations. The costumes, feathers, beads, and woven fabrics rustled softly with each step, contributing to the tranquil tapestry of sound and motion. One curious detail: certain rituals included the careful burning of copal resin, whose fragrant smoke was believed to carry prayers up to the heavens. You can almost see the thin tendrils of smoke curling lazily upward, blending with the warm evening air as people quietly exhale in unison. This slow ascent of smoke became a physical metaphor for the connection between earth and sky human, and divine, a visual lullaby inviting calm and contemplation. The role of the priests was central in these ceremonies, their movements precise and unhurried, embodying the balance between power and gentleness. They wore richly embroidered robes, their faces painted in soft colors, symbolizing the gods they served. Their chants were slow and melodic, filled with repetition that lulled both participants and listeners into a shared trance-like state. Some scholars still argue about how much the average Aztec citizen understood of these religious nuances, but the immersive sensory experience was unmistakable. Interestingly, the Aztecs also believed that festivals helped keep cosmic order intact. They saw the universe as a fragile system where human actions, especially rituals, could influence the movement of celestial bodies and the favor of gods. This idea lends a slow, profound gravity to the celebrations, transforming them from mere gatherings into sacred acts of universal maintenance. Imagine the festival slowly winding down as night falls. The crowd disperses quietly, shadows stretching long and soft under the moon's gentle glow. Lanterns flicker out one by one, leaving only the steady pulse of distant drums and the whisper of voices fading into the cool night. The city exhales and you feel yourself sinking deeper into this calm, ancient world, where every ritual is a careful stitch in the vast fabric of time. This gentle cycle of celebration and rest offers a soothing reminder that even in a bustling empire, moments of slow, mindful connection were treasured. Festivals weren't rushed or chaotic. They were slow breaths of collective gratitude and hope, wrapped in sound, scent, and touch. So, as you imagine yourself walking away from the softly glowing plaza, wrapped in the lingering warmth of a shared human story, allow the gentle cadence of Aztec festivals to ease your mind. Their slow, immersive ceremonies remind you that even the grandest empires thrive on the quiet rhythms of life moments, to pause, breathe, and feel connected before slipping peacefully into the night. As the echoes of the festivals gently fade, your journey carries you deeper into the quieter, more intimate spaces of Aztec life. The homes and households where daily routines quietly unfold in a steady, soothing rhythm. Picture yourself stepping through a modest doorway in Tenochtitlan, the soft light of an oil lamp flickering against walls painted with warm earth tones. The faint aroma of maize tortillas cooking over a gentle fire mingles with the subtle scent of dried herbs hung in neat bundles. Here the pulse of the empire slows to a comforting heartbeat, marked by small acts of care, tradition, and the steady flow of daily chores. Aztec homes, or calli, were typically made of adobe bricks and thatched roofs, simple yet sturdy, designed to shelter families through the changing seasons. Inside the rooms were small and multi-purpose, with woven mats covering the floors and shelves holding jars of food and pottery. The furniture was sparse, often just low benches or wooden stools inviting a relaxed posture, and slow, deliberate movements as you move about the space. A well-known fact about Aztec domestic life is the division of labor, which was organized but fluid. Women typically managed the household, preparing meals, weaving cloth, and caring for children, while men often tended fields, hunted, or crafted tools. However, these roles were not rigid cages. Families worked together, creating a gentle dance of cooperation and mutual support. The daily rhythm was punctuated by simple rituals such as offering small prayers or burning incense to honor the household gods, blending spirituality into the everyday. One particularly soothing aspect of Aztec home life was the slow preparation of food. Meals were often based on maize, which was ground into dough to make tortillas, tamales, or atole, a warm, comforting drink made from cornmeal and flavored with spices or honey. Imagine the gentle sound of grinding maize on a metate, a stone tool at steady rhythm, a kind of meditation, or the soft hiss of tamales steaming over coals, filling the air with a mellow, inviting scent. Food preparation was not rushed. It was a mindful practice, a way to connect with tradition and nourish body and soul. Children were raised with a mix of gentle discipline and loving care, taught from a young age about their roles and responsibilities in the community. Education happened at home and in schools, with a focus on respect, obedience, and practical skills. Stories and legends were shared in the evenings, often with a softly spoken voice and deliberate pacing, to help children absorb lessons without haste or pressure. The emphasis was on patience and repetition values that also helped calm restless minds and soothe the spirit. A quirky but heartwarming tidbit is that some families kept small pet-like animals such as turkeys or dogs, which provided companionship and a slow, steady presence amid the bustle. These animals were treated with care, often accompanying their humans on errands or resting quietly at their feet during meals. Their soft, familiar sounds added to the soothing domestic soundtrack. The home was also a place of craft and creation. Women spun cotton and dyed it with natural pigments, producing vibrant fabrics that would later become clothing or trade goods. Men carved wood or shaped clay into tools, vessels, and figurines. Each item was crafted slowly and with intention, reflecting a deep connection to the materials and the stories they carried. This mindful making was a quiet act of culture preservation, a gentle heartbeat linking past and present. Interestingly, the Aztecs also had a tradition of tattooing, a practice that might seem bold, but was approached with a calm respect for symbolism and personal meaning. Tattoos were often small and subtle, marking life achievements or religious devotion. The process was slow and careful with pain, endured not as a trial but as a deliberate passage away to wear one's story on the skin like a soft, permanent lullaby. Historians still debate the extent to which these domestic practices varied between social classes, but the overall sense is one of steady continuity and shared values. Whether in noble palaces or humble huts, the emphasis on balance, routine, and connection created a foundation of calm in the midst of empire building. One of the gentlest but most important domestic rituals was the evening meal and its quiet aftermath. Families gathered to eat together, sharing not just food, but stories, laughter, and sometimes gentle teasing. The pace was unhurried meals lasting long enough for digestion and conversation to blend into a relaxing rhythm. Afterwards, some households might engage in slow storytelling or simple music making, with flutes and drums activities that helped ease the transition from the day's work to restful night. You might find it curious that despite the empire's size and complexity, there was no rush to modern busyness in these moments. Life here moved with the unforced flow of seasons and stars, where the importance of rest and routine was deeply understood. Even chores like weaving or grinding maize were seen as opportunities for meditation and calm focus. As night deepens outside the home's warmth and quiet, become a cocoon of safety. The soft flicker of firelight casts gentle shadows, and the distant sounds of the city settle into a low murmur. The steady breathing of family members, the subtle crackle of the hearth, and the faint rustling of woven fabrics compose a lullaby of domestic peace. So, as you imagine this slow, intimate world, where every breath, every gesture carries a gentle purpose, allow yourself to sink into the soothing rhythm of Aztec daily life. The empire's grandeur might be told in stories of gods and warriors, but it is here in the steady unfolding of ordinary moments that you find the true heartbeat of a civilization built on patience, care, and quiet connection. The calm, rhythmic pulse of Aztec home life sets the perfect stage as you now drift into the world of Aztec education, a surprisingly gentle and structured journey designed to prepare children for their roles with patience, care, and a touch of quiet humor. Imagine yourself sitting cross-legged on a woven mat, listening to a teacher's calm voice as the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the courtyard where lessons unfold. Slowly, with deliberate pacing meant to soothe and instruct. Education in the Aztec Empire was surprisingly widespread and formal, especially compared to other societies of the time. Most children, regardless of social class, attended schools Kalmakak for nobles and Telpochkali for commoners, where learning was an immersive process. These institutions emphasized not just reading and writing, but moral guidance, practical skills, and cultural knowledge, all delivered at a pace that encouraged deep absorption rather than hurried memorization. A mainstream fact, you might find comforting Aztec education focused heavily on storytelling, poetry, and philosophy, all shared with a soft cadence that made lessons feel like bedtime stories rather than strict drills. Teachers or Tilatwani used repetition, gentle questioning, and rhythmic chants to help students internalize values like humility, courage, and respect. Picture a circle of attentive children quietly repeating verses, their voices blending into a soothing hum that drifts like a lullaby on the evening breeze. One quirky detail worth noting is the use of songs and poems to teach complex ideas. These weren't sharp or demanding. Instead, they unfolded slowly like a gentle stream, allowing young minds to wander comfortably through history, ethics, and practical knowledge. This method was not just educational, but deeply meditative, encouraging calm reflection alongside learning. Interestingly, girls and boys often had different educational tracks reflecting societal roles, but both were imbued with the sense of gentle responsibility. Girls learned domestic skills arts like weaving and cooking and the spiritual duties they would carry forward. Boys practiced hunting, warfare, and governance, but always with a steady emphasis on balance and self-control. Historians still debate how much overlap existed and how rigid these divisions truly were. But the prevailing image is one of slow, respectful preparation rather than harsh training. You might be surprised that discipline in Aztec schools was firm, but rarely harsh in the way we might imagine. Corrections were made calmly, often through stories illustrating consequences, rather than through loud punishment. Teachers emphasized understanding and reflection, encouraging students to think about their actions in a slow, thoughtful way, a method that clearly fostered a tranquil learning environment. Beyond formal lessons, practical experience was a key part of education. Children accompanied adults on errands, farming tasks, or craft-making learning by observing and gradually taking on responsibilities. These moments, often quiet and unhurried, were just as important as classroom instruction. Imagine a young apprentice weaving cotton or grinding maize with a patient elder, the soft sounds of work blending with gentle guidance. Another soothing aspect was the focus on physical activity, not as competition but as balance. Games like Tlachtli, a ball game with ritual significance, were played with measured intensity and were seen as ways to build community and harmony rather than aggressive rivalry. This slow, careful movement and shared respect among players created a calming social space amid the day's duties. Education also involved spiritual instruction. Children were gently introduced to the pantheon of gods, learning prayers, rituals, and myths through soft storytelling and ritual participation. This spiritual grounding was not overwhelming, but woven delicately into the fabric of daily life, nurturing a sense of wonder and calm reverence for the natural and supernatural world. It's worth noting that literacy, though highly valued, was not widespread in the modern sense. Writing was complex and mostly reserved for priests and nobles, but oral tradition thrived as a slow, deliberate way to preserve history and culture. The Aztec script, comprising pictographs and ideograms, was studied patiently, often through hands-on copying and mnemonic devices that encouraged gentle repetition. As evening deepens, imagine a young Aztec student finishing the day's lessons, stepping outside into the cool air to hear the distant, soothing sounds of drums and flutes from the city's festivals. The steady rhythm of education, like the slow unfolding of the day itself, prepares each new generation not just for survival, but for thoughtful, respectful participation in a world that values calm, purposeful living. In this gentle, immersive educational system, you see the slow unfolding of a society's wisdom lessons, passed down with patience and care, designed to ease children into their roles with confidence and calm. The emphasis on balance, reflection, and community provides a quiet reminder that learning need not be a race, but can be a peaceful journey, one thoughtful step at a time. So as you close your eyes, picture the warm glow of the firelight on young faces, the soft murmur of chants and stories weaving a timeless lullaby. The Aztec schoolyard, far from the rush and noise of modern life, offers a serene space where knowledge flows gently, preparing minds and hearts for the slow, steady rhythms of life in this remarkable empire. As the gentle rhythm of education fades into the evening, you now find yourself wandering through the quiet but vibrant streets of Tenochtitlan, at dusk observing the fascinating world of Aztec medicine, and healing a world that unfolds slowly with thoughtful care and a deep reverence for nature's calming touch. Imagine the soft footsteps on the stone-paved causeways, the distant murmur of marketplaces closing, and the faint, soothing aroma of medicinal herbs mingling with the cool air as you approach the humble house of a healer or Tissitl, where knowledge passed down through generations is practiced with gentle hands. Aztec medicine was a complex blend of empirical knowledge, spiritual belief, and patient observation. Unlike the harsh, hurried remedies you might expect from ancient times, Aztec healing was a careful process focused on balance and harmony within the body and the environment. Healers used a wide variety of plants, many native to the region, whose uses were discovered through slow experimentation and trial over centuries. Imagine a Tissitl grinding leaves and flowers with a stone mortar. The rhythm of the pounding, a slow, calming beat that matches the steady breathing of a patient lying quietly on woven mats. One mainstream fact you'll find reassuring is that Aztec healers understood the importance of diet hygiene and rest as crucial components of health. Patients were encouraged to consume nutrient-rich foods like amaranth chia seeds and maize, and to avoid excessive exertion or stress, showing an intuitive grasp of holistic well-being long before modern science formalized such ideas. Their remedies often combined physical treatments with prayers and rituals, gently weaving body and spirit together in the healing process. A particularly intriguing tidbit is the use of copal incense in healing ceremonies. The fragrant smoke was believed to purify the patient, and space creating an atmosphere conducive to recovery. This slow sensory ritual, breathing in the warm, resinous scent, while soft chants fill the room, might remind you of modern aromatherapy, a natural way to soothe nerves and encourage calm. The smoke curled and twisted lazily like a silent lullaby whispering wellness. The Aztecs also employed a variety of herbal poultices, teas, and salves, each prepared with deliberate care and patience. For example, the Tepescohuite tree bark was used to treat skin ailments, while quachalolate leaves helped with digestive issues. Healers often combined multiple ingredients, carefully balancing bitter, sweet, and pungent flavors to create medicines that were as palatable as they were effective, easing symptoms without harsh side effects. Historians still argue whether some treatments were more symbolic than medicinal, but the general consensus appreciates the thoughtful integration of practical and spiritual healing. Surprisingly, Aztec doctors also performed minor surgical procedures, such as setting broken bones or draining abscesses, but always with a slow, careful touch and an emphasis on cleanliness that was remarkable for the era. You might picture a healer working gently with obsidian blades razor sharp, but handled like fine instruments, ensuring minimal pain and swift recovery. Their understanding of anatomy, though limited by the knowledge of the time, was surprisingly detailed, enhanced by religious respect for the human body as a vessel of divine energy. The role of the Tissitl extended beyond physical healing. They were counselors and spiritual guides, listening patiently to patients' stories and fears, helping them navigate emotional distress with calm words and ritual comfort. This holistic approach created a slow, deliberate pace in treatment, where the patient's emotional and social well-being was seen as integral to recovery. A charmingly quirky detail is that some remedies involved animal products like the use of crushed bones from small birds or the fat of certain creatures. While this might seem unusual today, these ingredients were chosen with care and respect for their symbolic power believed to transfer strength or vitality to the patient. The slow preparation of such remedies combined with ritual blessings added a layer of sacred meaning that helped soothe the spirit as well as the body. In your imagined evening, you might hear the faint sound of drums and chanting from a nearby temple, blending with the quiet rustle of herbs and the soft voices of healers and patients. The healing space feels like a sanctuary, a place of calm refuge where time slows and attention focuses gently on restoration. It's important to note that while Aztec medicine included spiritual elements that may seem foreign to us, these practices were rooted in an empirical understanding of their environment, offering practical, slow-acting cures that relied on patience and observation. This blend of science and spirituality created a uniquely comforting approach to health, one that encouraged trust, hope, and the soothing power of ritual. As you step back into the cool night air, feeling the lingering scent of copal and crushed herbs you carry with you, a deep appreciation for a system of healing that values balance, slow attentiveness, and the gentle nurturing of body and soul. In the quiet care of the Taisadal, you glimpse an ancient wisdom about health that in its own peaceful way continues to whisper to us across the centuries. So allow this calm perspective on Aztec healing to settle in your mind like a soft balm, encouraging you to breathe a little slower, relax a little deeper, and find your own rhythm in the slow unfolding of life's gentle rhythms. As the soothing haze of incense and herbal smoke fades behind you, you now find yourself moving deeper into the quiet corners of the Aztec capital, guided by the soft flicker of torches and the distant murmur of conversation. Tonight, you're stepping into a world where very little seems to happen, and that's exactly the point. This is leisure in the Aztec Empire, a slow, subtle art of passing time, not through frenzy, but through quiet joy. Here, even relaxation is structured, serene, and deeply woven into community life. You wouldn't expect it at first. After all, the Aztecs are often portrayed as fierce warriors and temple builders. But beyond the battlefield and marketplace, there lies a rich, almost meditative world of games, music, dance, and shared storytelling, all carried out at a gentle pace. From the soft clack of game pieces on stone to the hypnotic rhythm of ceremonial songs, leisure in Tenochtitlan has a way of inviting you to slow down, listen, and linger. A mainstream fact to start with: the Aztecs were passionate about Tlachtli, their ritual ball game. But don't picture a roaring stadium or high-stakes sports match. The game had sacred significance and was often played in stone courts between two teams using a solid rubber ball. Players used only their hips and thighs to move the ball through a small vertical hoop. The movements were fluid, deliberate, and almost dance-like, less like modern basketball and more like an athletic prayer. Spectators watched quietly, reverently, knowing the game symbolized cosmic balance more than mere victory. You can almost hear the low thud of the ball, the shuffle of feet, the focused breath of the players, all carried on the wind as the sun dips low. And leisure wasn't just for the young or the elite. The elderly gathered in shaded courtyards to tell stories, hum ancestral songs, and share bowls of atole. Children played gentler games, things like chase doll play or mimicry of adult chores under the watchful, amused eyes of parents and grandparents. The hum of daily life slowed to a cozy drone in the afternoons, especially after meals when people reclined in the shade and let their food digest while watching the clouds drift across the lake sky. One delightfully quirky pastime was flower arranging. Yes, flower arranging. Called Xochicuicatl, it was both an aesthetic and philosophical practice. People made garlands, wove blossoms into clothing, and decorated homes and temples with fragrant blooms not just for show, but to honor the gods and soothe the spirit. Flowers were even believed to carry songs and to give visual form to poetry. You can almost feel your fingers gently weaving fragrant marigolds and white magnolia petals together. The air rich with a sweet perfume, the pace unhurried and dreamlike. Music, of course, was central to Aztec leisure, and it wasn't something you merely listened to, it was something you experienced. Instruments like flutes, shell trumpets, and clay drums were played in soft patterns, often accompanied by slow ceremonial dancing. The rhythms were steady and repetitive, ideal for trance-like states or quiet contemplation. Picture a small family ensemble in the courtyard, their tones echoing off adobe walls while neighbors gather with steaming cups of chocolate to listen and sway gently with the music. The Aztecs also composed poetry not as an elite luxury, but as a communal activity. Poets would share their verses aloud at gatherings, often accompanied by subtle flute melodies. Themes ranged from nature to death to dreams and even mild humor. One verse might compare a nobleman's robes to a rain-soaked bird. Another might question the point of building anything if it all crumbles in the end. Historians still argue whether Aztec poetry was meant more as performance or private meditation. But the consensus is clear: this was a society that valued the slow articulation of thought, the luxury of stillness between words. Even meals were part of the leisure rhythm. While daytime meals were often quick and functional, the evening meal was slower, more communal. Families gathered around low clay braziers where tortillas were freshly warmed. There'd be steaming bowls of bean stew, roasted insects for crunch. Maybe tamales wrapped in fragrant leaves. Conversation flowed at a relaxed tempo. Elders told stories. Children quietly giggled at old jokes. The sounds of chewing laughter and crackling fire formed an ambient hum, something soft and grounding. It's worth noting that Aztec society didn't separate labor from leisure the way we do. Craftwork, for example, could be deeply meditative. A potter shaping clay with slow circular movements. A weaver repeating the same gentle over and under motion hundreds of times. These acts weren't just tasks, they were rituals of attention. In fact, many Aztec artisans saw their work as a form of devotion, where the quiet rhythmic motion brought them closer to the gods and to themselves. This is leisure as flow immersed, quiet, serene. And then there were festivals. Not the chaotic music blaring kind, but slow ceremonial affairs stretched over days with dancing offerings and theatrical performances. One particularly gentle one was Xochitl, the Festival of Flowers. People wore their best garments, sang softly, shared food, and adorned their streets with blooms. You'd walk slowly through arches of petals, feel flower dust on your skin, and hear flutes echoing from the temples. It was a celebration of beauty, transience, and the fleeting nature of joy, all observed slowly, reverently, in the most relaxing way possible. A final quirky note, even dreaming was seen as a kind of leisure in the Aztec world. Dreams were believed to carry messages, visions, and guidance. Some would spend early mornings retelling their dreams to others, parsing meanings like sleepy philosophers over hot maize porridge. Dream interpretation schools even existed for priestly students. In this culture, sleep wasn't escape, it was a sacred journey. So tonight, as you breathe in deeply and feel your muscles slacken, imagine yourself nestled into the soft twilight of Tenochtitlan leisure, where poetry hums in the distance, games are played in near silence, and someone just down the lane is laughing over a cup of chocolate beside a small clay fire. Life moves slowly here, not out of laziness, but out of deliberate care, like a river that refuses to rush. And maybe that's the real luxury. Not material things or grand achievements, but time itself, unhurried, unbroken, and gently flowing forward, moment by peaceful moment. You wake early expecting the usual drum beat from the temple, but there's only silence. The air feels thick. The wind has gone still. Something has shifted. You're not the only one who notices it. The city of Tenochtitlan stirs with a nervous energy like the hush before a summer storm. Strange rumors are drifting in from the coast. Visitors. Pale-skinned men with metal armor and glowing sticks. They ride animals no one has ever seen. Some say they have gods with fire in their mouths. You pass a group of elders huddled around a market stall, whispering like old crows, flapping their cloaks and shaking their heads. Their words aren't comforting. Emperor Moctezuma hears these rumors too, and he doesn't like them. Normally confident, he becomes distant, even fearful. He consults his priests and soothsayers, hoping for a sign. He's told that omens have been spotted lakes boiling a comet, tearing across the sky, women crying in the dark. He grows quiet, paralyzed by possibility. Historians still debate whether Moctezuma saw Cortez and his men as God's demons, or just a new kind of threat. What's clear is this: instead of fighting them off, he welcomes them into his city. You find yourself watching from a distance as the Spanish enter Tenochtitlan. They seem more confused than triumphant. Some stare at the temples in awe, others keep their hands on their weapons. You spot Cortez himself, stern-faced with a beard like black feathers, eyes always scanning. He doesn't speak your language, but he understands power. For weeks, an uneasy peace holds. The Spaniards are housed in one of Moctezuma's palaces. The emperor tries to keep them close, perhaps to watch them, perhaps to control them. Tensions simmer. One afternoon, you hear shouting near the temple. A ceremony has turned violent. Spanish swords flash. Blood darkens the stones. Everything changes after that. The people revolt. Moctezuma, who once stood above the city as a god king, is now seen as a puppet. He tries to speak to the crowd to calm them, but something hits him. A stone, a spear. No one agrees. Either way, the emperor falls. The spell is broken. With Moctezuma gone, chaos seizes the city like a fever. You see it in the faces of your neighbors, eyes wide, fists, clenched sandals, thudding down the causeways in panic. The Spanish retreat to their quarters, surrounded now by a sea of rage. The people of Tenochtitlan, once bound by ceremony and law, now act with fury, sharpened by grief. You feel the walls of the city pulse like a heart that's skipped too many beats. The new Tlatoani Cuitlahuac wastes no time. He calls for war and you answer, because now it feels like survival. Slingstones are gathered spears, sharpened canoes readied for siege. The causeways that once brought tribute and trade now serve as battlegrounds. The city prepares to trap the invaders, and then the night comes. La Noche Triste, the sad night, as the Spanish will call it later. But for you, it's a night of smoke, fire, and drowning. The Spaniards try to escape the city under cover of darkness, dragging stolen gold, their boots too heavy for the lake bed. They stumble, they sink. Many never make it to the far shore. You stand on the temple steps watching the flames rise as their retreat collapses into chaos. There's a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow in your chest, like winning a game only to realize the board is on fire. But victory is short-lived. The Spaniards survive, and they're not alone anymore. Within months, Cortez returns with thousands of native allies, Tlaxcalans eager to see the Mexica brought low. They march beside Spanish cavalry, bringing knowledge of the land and old grudges in equal measure. What follows is a siege like no other. Tenochtitlan, your lake-bound jewel, begins to starve. The aqueducts are cut. The chinampas burn. Disease spreads, smallpox, they call it. No one had a name for it before. You watch friends and family collapse in the streets covered in sores, breath shallow as reeds. Historians still argue whether the city could have held out longer if Kutlawak had lived, if the disease hadn't struck so soon, if the gods had not turned away. You only know what you see: the slow, choking death of a city built on centuries of order. You wake each day weaker but still breathing. You carry buckets, you whisper old prayers, you do what you can. But you know this world is ending. The days blur into one another, each marked by smoke hunger and silence. Tenochtitlan, once so full of rhythm, chants, and footfalls, is quieter now. The songs are gone. The temple stairs are slick with rain and something else. The air carries a faint rot, and even the wind sounds tired. You spend most of your time along the edges of the canals, ferrying small bundles of food or water between neighbors. Everyone moves like shadows now, thin, cautious, unsure who will be left by nightfall. The sky feels heavier each day, and then one morning it's all over. You wake to shouting not of battle, but surrender. A white banner waves from a shattered rooftop. The Spanish have breached the final defenses. What's left of the Aztec resistance crumbles beneath their boots. There's no final stand, no grand blaze of glory, just the groan of stone walls giving in to time and cannon. You sit with a few others near the edge of a ruined marketplace, the once colorful stalls now ash and broken reeds. A child coughs beside you. A dog limps past ribs showing. The empire's gone. Cuauhtémoc, the last emperor, is captured. He's young, barely a man, and still holds his head high. Legend says he asked Cortés to kill him then, and there to end the shame quickly. Cortés refuses. He'll keep him alive for now. Historians still debate whether Cuauhtémoc truly said those words, whether he truly walked into captivity with dignity. But you don't need proof. You saw it. Or maybe you dreamed it. At this point, it's hard to tell. The city never quite recovers. The Spanish rebuild over its bones, planting churches atop temples, renaming lakes and markets. But every so often under the cobblestones, someone finds a carved stone, a buried mask, a broken obsidian blade, and remembers. And you survive. Not as a warrior, not as a priest, just as a witness. You remember the way the lake glittered, the way the drums echoed across the rooftops, the way the wind moved through maize leaves, and that is something, that is everything.